Padres pregame show on the Padres Radio Network.
Jackson swings, hits it in the air, deep to right field. He has done it again. Unbelievable.
Coming up, we'll have a recap of the previous Padres game, a preview of today's starting pitching matchup, our keys to the game. Plus, we'll hear from manager Mike Shildt.
Ultimately, what we're here to do is win.
From the Padres Radio Network, here's Sam Levitt.
San Diego Padres baseball coming up on 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network. Today, the Padres take on the Pittsburgh Pirates in the first game of a three-game series. Our starting pitching matchup today for the Padres, right-hander Dylan Cease, and for the Pirates, right-hander Mitch Keller. Hi, good everyone. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios. First pitch coming up at PNC Park in Pittsburgh at 3:40. Coming up in the next 50 minutes, we'll hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. We hear from Brandon Lockridge, who is off the IL, back on the active roster. We'll hear from Padres radio voice Jesse Agler coming up in just a little bit. Our keys to the game and much, much more to come on this Friday. But first, it's time to set the table. Brought to you by Fraser Farms Market. Set your table with the highest quality of natural and organic products from Fraser Farms Market, a San Diego original since 1971 with 3 locations, La Mesa, Vista, and Oceanside, and at FraserFarmsMarket.com. Padres enter today 19-11, currently sitting in second place in the National League West, a game and a half behind the LA Dodgers. Padres coming off a quick 2-game sweep of the Giants that came after a stretch where the Padres dropped 8 of 11 games. Today is the start of a 9-game, 3-city road trip to Pittsburgh, the Bronx, and Colorado. Meanwhile, the Pirates come in 12-20, not playing all that well right now. They've lost 4 of their last 5 games to the Dodgers and the Cubs. Before we turn our full attention to this road trip, let's revisit what happened on Wednesday here in San Diego.
Did you miss what happened in the last Padres game? Let's take a look back with our Padres Rewind on the Padres Radio Network.
Padres and Giants on Wednesday in the bottom half of the second. It was Tyler Wade.
And the 2-2 is hit on a line into right field. That's down to the base hit. Yastrzemski charging. Sheets is on his way. Here's the throw to the plate. Not in time. RBI single Tyler Wade to give the Padres a 1-0 lead.
Padres led 2-0 in the fifth. There were 2 on base for Manny.
Runners take their leads. First pitch to Machado. Sliced in the air the other way. Charged by Yastrzemski. It'll drop down to base hit. Fernando on to score, a third straight single, and the Padre lead is now 3-0.
Later in the inning, the bases loaded for Jose Iglesias.
Runners lead at all 3 bases. Iglesias waiting. The first pitch from Bivens swung on, tapped up the third baseline. Going to be tricky. Bivens barehands it. He's got no play. Arise comes in to score. An infield single for Iglesias, and the Padre lead is 4-0.
Padres led 4-0 through 5. Michael King went 5 2/3 innings. He gave up just 1 run. It was 4-1 in the bottom half of the 6th inning. A runner on base for Luis Arise.
3-1 the pitch. And Arise hits it hard on the ground right side. Beyond the dive of Wade down the right field line. Diaz will come in to score. Arise has 2. He's thinking 3. On his way to third base. Fitzgerald's relay not in time. An RBI triple for Luis Arise. And the Padre lead is now 5-1.
Giants made it interesting. A solo home run from Elliot Ramos in the 7th. Another from Mike Yastrzemski in the 8th inning to make it 5-3. In that 8th inning, the Giants had the tying run at the plate.
Adames not running, and Lee swings, hits it in the air to left field, not deep. Long run, Hayward in and towards the line. On the move, slides forward, and he makes the catch. Gonna hang a star for Jason Hayward.
An amazing catch that helped Jason Adam through the 8th inning. It was Robert Suarez in the 9th.
0-2 from the Padre closer. The pitch to Bailey, swung on and missed. Strike 3, a filthy changeup, and back-to-back strikeouts for Suarez to end this game. Save number 12 for the Padre closer as the Pods break out the baby brooms and sweep this 2-game set from the Giants. 7-4 last night and 5-3 here this afternoon.
A really nice bounce back couple of days for the Padres, and now they begin this 9-game road trip in Pittsburgh on this Friday against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Let's go out to PNC Park.
Let's take a trip up to the Padres broadcast booth for a deep dive on today's matchup with Jesse Agler in our Padres game preview on the Padres Radio Network.
All right, Jesse, before we get to this series, couple of items for you. And first, it looked like you, alongside some of the other broadcasters with the Padres, had an opportunity to go to the game yesterday in Pittsburgh, entertaining a matchup between Paul Skeens and the Cubs. How'd it go?
Yeah, it was cool. You know, it's one of my favorite things to do, as I'm sure we've talked about before. And usually, I mean, max once or twice a year do we get the chance to kind of stay within walking distance of the ballpark, be there for an off day, have that team playing a game. It'll actually happen again on Thursday in Denver this week. But, yeah, I mean, it's such an easy and pretty walk across the bridge from downtown. And Skeens pitching, who we obviously haven't seen in person yet. So it was cool. It was fun. Tony and I got some chicken fingers, stuffed our faces, me more than him, and did our thing. I know AJ Preller was here. Mike Shildt was here. So a lot of interested parties, spending at least part of the off day checking out some baseball, because that's the kind of people we are.
All right. Hope you had a good time. And like you said, a rarity that you can go to a baseball game as a fan and enjoy. I heard a rumor right before we came on that the tarp has been been put on the field at PNC Park. Can you confirm?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
As I posted on Instagram, I think I wrote Bradshaw, Lemieux, Clemente, and the tarp, Pittsburgh icons. And so, yes, the tarp is on the field. Will not start on time. There is, they're telling us, no chance of being able to start at 6:40 local time tonight.
Oh, great.
The storm, FYI, the storm is just now starting to do its thing here. It's really kind of a very pretty rain at the moment. As long as you're under cover, of course, it's sort of sweeping from right to left. It's like a thick, heavy rain that's almost like a big mist. And so as we look at the buildings in downtown Pittsburgh across the Allegheny in right field, I mean, it's just a very, very pretty scene, unless you're trying to play a baseball game, which, of course, we are. Looks like, according to the Acu Jesse, by about 8 o'clock or so tonight, Pittsburgh time, we should have a couple hours of a window to try and play this game. But, of course, as we learned the last time that Dylan Cease played here or pitched here, it's not just the rain. I mean, the rain was part of the problem, but then remember, the field flooded when we were here last August. It was over an hour longer of a delay. It's really coming down now, by the way. When the warning track flooded, they say it's the three rivers in Pittsburgh. We got a fourth river last time we were here, and it was on the warning track in center field at PNC Park. So, hopefully the field holds up a little bit better this time. As I recall from when we were here late last season, it was a drainage issue that one would hope has been fixed in the however many months since that. But we'll keep our eyes certainly on the warning track out in center field.
All right. Well, good news. I have no dinner plans tonight here in San Diego, so I can hang around as long as I need to, and we will keep you company here on the Padres Radio Network until today's game begins in Pittsburgh. Let's talk about Dylan Cease a little bit, Jesse. Obviously, it's been a bit of an up and down first 6 starts or so of the season for him. Some of the numbers really inflated by that rough outing in Sacramento. But to you, how does Dylan Cease unlock that most dominant version of himself?
That's a good question, and not one that I feel capable answering. My observation, and it's not a tremendous one by any means, but my observation is he hasn't looked like himself yet. And that means 1,000 different things. But I know he's been working with Ruben in the last few days to try and go over some mechanical stuff. We heard that earlier in the year as well. I think after that start against the A's that you just referenced, in which he gave up the 9 runs in 4 innings, there was some mechanical stuff he was going through. And I'm sure there's more of that taking place. Look, this is a guy who's got a very long history of being very good in the big leagues. We saw it last year with the Padres. And it's the funny thing about pitching. And, there are times when it seems, I imagine, as a starter, that you just can't quite get things going. And that's the case to this point for Dylan Cease. But that doesn't mean it won't lock in here tonight. Again, weather permitting, and I do expect we'll be able to start this game in a couple of hours. But it's been an odd start for Dylan, certainly, because again, go back to last year. Once he got on a roll in 2024, he was clearly and legitimately, truly one of the best pitchers in all of baseball.
Jesse, before I let you go, let's touch on the Padres offense. They go up against a pretty good right-hander in the form of Mitch Keller today, but I thought it was just great to see you had Arise come back, Hayward come back, and whether coincidence or not, you just saw in those 2 games against the Giants, all of a sudden they looked like the team that you fell in love with the first 2-3 weeks of the season, and to me, that was a great sign to see that offense really return, both results-wise and really approach-wise in those 2 games against San Francisco.
Yeah, someone would have a really hard time trying to convince me it was not coincidence.
Yeah.
Or it was coincidence, excuse me. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind, and Tony and I talked a lot about this during those 2 games that, you get those guys back, and not only do they obviously contribute, which, they do, but it lessens so much of the pressure on everybody else. And just look at the at-bats that Gavin Sheets had, even the 2 games, against Tampa Bay when Arise and Hayward came back, and he went back to looking like the guy that he was the first few weeks of the season before he really kind of put himself in a tough hole. It's human nature, right? You try and do too much. You're trying to kind of, squeeze the bat a little bit tighter and trying to make up for the guys who aren't there. And that's just not a recipe for success. So there's no doubt in my mind that the return of those guys was a big reason why they looked like themselves. The 2 games against Tampa Bay, you certainly hope that continues here this weekend. And then, if everything stays on track, it certainly appears as if Jackson Merrill will rejoin the group on Monday in the Bronx. So, a lot of good news on the injury front. And that was the good thing. You lost a bunch of guys, but none of it, at least it looked like at the time, and still looks like it's not too serious. And you weather the storm, pun intended, as I look at just, buckets of rain coming down here in Pittsburgh. And then they'll be off and running again.
All right, Jesse, good stuff as always. Stay dry. We will talk to you when we talk to you from Pittsburgh, and hopefully that's sooner rather than later. As always, thanks so much.
You got it, Sam.
All right, that's Jesse Agler joining us on our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show here on the Padres Radio Network. I can tell you officially and quite obviously from what we heard from Jesse with the tarp on the field and it pouring in Pittsburgh right now, but I can tell you officially we will start in a delay today, or I should say a delay before first pitch today. So that's good news and bad news. The bad news is that we want to play baseball on time whenever possible. The good news is that we will be with you right here in San Diego, Padres Radio Network, until today's game begins. So don't go anywhere. We've got plenty of pregame coverage. We'll roll along our pregame coverage as usual for the next, 45, 50 minutes or so. And then we'll kind of take it from there. We have some different items to play you and to take your phone calls, things like that as well. So we'll let you know when we get updates about when first pitch will be in Pittsburgh. But when we come back, we'll hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. Plus, a little bit later, we hear from Brandon Lockridge, who was activated off the IL today. We'll have more on that coming up as well. Also, a Padre won an award, very prestigious award, and we'll tell you more about that when we come back as well. First pitch coming up in just a little bit at some point in Pittsburgh. Stay tuned in to the Padres Radio Network. Our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios. We have today's game between the Padres and Pirates coming up at some point at PNC Park in Pittsburgh. The reason I say at some point is because the tarp is on the field in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and we will have a delay before first pitch for game one of this three-game series between the Padres and the Pirates. But don't worry, I'm here with you until whenever today's game gets started. So we'll take our time here in our pregame coverage on this Friday, and a little bit later, who knows, might get some of your phone calls and whatnot, but we'll continue on our typical pregame coverage for a while here, get through our normal segments. We'll hear from Mike Shildt in just a little bit as well. We'll hear from Brandon Lockridge, who is fresh off the IL today. We'll talk more about that in a moment. First, let's pause for station ID on the Padres Radio Network.
KWFN-FM and KWFN-HD1 San Diego.
This is Jake Cronenworth. Padres play here on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan.
An Odyssey sports station.
Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios as we get ready for today's game, our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show. Couple of items before we hear from Mike Shildt, what he had to say earlier today in Pittsburgh. Padres making a move before today's game, reinstating outfielder Brandon Lockridge from the 10-day IL. They optioned outfielder Tirso Ornelas to AAA El Paso. So Lockridge is back. Padres slowly but surely starting to get healthier and healthier as Lockridge returns, and Ornelas, who had his first cup of coffee in the major leagues, goes back down to AAA. So we'll see the next time that Ornelas is maybe back up in the major leagues. The other piece of news that came out within the last hour or so, Robert Suarez, very well deserved. He was named National League Reliever of the Month by Major League Baseball. Suarez in the month of April, 12 for 12, or I should say really months of March and April combined. 12 for 12 in save opportunities, a 0.64 ERA, 0.57 whip, 106 batting average against, 16 strikeouts to only 3 walks. Roberts had a terrific all-star caliber start to 2025 and a very well-deserved honor, the NL Reliever of the Month. With all that in mind, let's hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. He starts by talking about Robert Suarez getting NL Reliever of the Month.
Let's pull up a seat in the manager's office and hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. Served up by Sin Lee Food, where fresh meets flavor. Find farm fresh produce, bold Asian spices, and gourmet ingredients at 4665 El Cajon Boulevard. Sin Lee Food, the cook's Asian resource.
Well deserved. Yeah, collective group, but yeah, he did a great job leading that back into that bullpen for sure.
Such a workhorse and so effective last year. What have you, in the first month, what have you seen from him?
More of the same. It's Robert. He's just, he's got that even keel demeanor, shows up, just going to go out, do his job, not make situations bigger than they are. What is, really, really exceptional talent, come out every time we get him the ball.
Lockridge is back, sliding back into kind of the role he was assuming before Jackson got hurt.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, he'll, got the righty going today. Wade's done a nice job establishing himself as a guy that clearly can go play center field and give us good at bats. So lock back provides us more flexibility to, play the game. Got lefties coming up, so get some opportunities there, and we'll take it as the game comes.
Guys talk so much about hitting being contagious, but I'm curious, kind of in the back end of your bullpen, do you think success there can be contagious for some other guys as well?
I do think there's something to that. I also believe that the hitting being contagious, the bullpen being effective, and that being contagious is representative of ability. We have really good hitters. We have a really good bullpen. But also it's equally representative, more or less, on the preparation that goes into it. This is a group in our bullpen that does a really, really good job with our staff, that our staff does their job to prepare. And then it's a very collaborative group. You watch them, they're always together. You watch your hitters, they're together. They're talking, they're seeing, they're studying, they're using reference points, so all those factor into that sustain success.
with the Kirsten being sent down, what do you think is the thing he needs to work on the most?
That's a tough one because Tirso has really become a guy that has turned himself into a I'm going to be as good as I can with all the skill sets that I have. He takes good at bats. He hangs in on lefties. We didn't give him as many bats against lefties, but he can take those at bats. He can take a walk and use the whole field. He understands situationally how to use the bat when it's called for relative to the situation. He's turned into a really capable defender. He runs the bases, very conscious about that. So just continue to play the game and understand, what he can do to bring that clubhouse with him as a big league player in AAA, and then figure out a way to be ready when the phone calls again.
That was Padres manager Mike Shildt earlier today inside the Padres dugout in Pittsburgh. Sam Levitt back with you inside our San Diego studios. We'll hear more from Mike Shildt on our postgame coverage coming up later on this evening. Again, we will have a delay before first pitch in Pittsburgh. Tarp is on the field right now at PNC Park. But again, the good news, we will be with you until a first pitch comes your way at some point, hopefully sooner rather than later in Pittsburgh, as the Padres begin this 3-game series against the Pirates and a 9-game road trip to Pittsburgh, New York City to play the Yankees, and then on to Denver, Colorado to finish up with a 3-game series next weekend in Denver. A couple of notes for you before we get to who's hot, who's not. The Padres, remember, they played really well against the Pirates last season. They won all 6 meetings against the Pirates last year, outscoring the Pirates 35-17. So you certainly hope that trend continues into 2025. Also tonight marks Mike Shildt's 31st career game managed at PNC Park. How about this? Mike Shildt is 25-5 at PNC Park. That .833 winning percentage is the highest among any manager at any ballpark in Major League history, with a minimum of 25 games managed there. Think about that. 30 games at PNC Park he's managed. He's 25-5. So for whatever reason, very good ballpark for Mr. Mike Shildt, and hopefully that trend continues this weekend as well. Let's tell you who's hot, who's not.
Which player is locked in at the dish? Who needs to kick things up another notch? This is Who's Hot, Who's Not on the Padres Radio Network.
We begin with a look at the hot category. Let's look at Fernando Tatis Jr. Took an 0-for on Tuesday, but bounced back with 3 hits on Wednesday. He still has not gone hitless in consecutive games this season. Tatis still leads the National League in batting average at .345. He's top 10 in home runs with 8, top 6 in on-base percentage, slugging percentage, and OPS as well. So Fernando, despite taking the 0-for on Tuesday, he remains in the hot category. My goodness, the guy's hitting .345. Not category, Gavin Sheets, who is just 1 for 23 in his last 7 games. And that's a quick look at who's hot, who's not, as we get ready for first pitch coming up at some point at PNC Park. And while we have some time, let's go through the lineups today for the Pirates and the Padres. First for the Padres, looks like this today. Fernando Tatis Jr. in right field leading off. Luis Ariz at first base batting second. Manny Machado at third base batting third. Gavin Sheets, the DH, batting cleanup. Xander Bogaerts at shortstop batting fifth. Jose Iglesias at second base batting sixth. Tyler Wade in center batting seventh. Jason Hayward in left field batting eighth. And Martin Maldonado doing the catching and batting ninth. For the Pirates, O'Neal Cruz, who's having a very nice start to the season in center field leading off. Right fielder Brian Reynolds batting second. Andrew McCutchen, the DH, batting third. Emmanuel Valdez, the first baseman, batting cleanup. Joey Bart, the catcher, batting fifth. Brian Hayes at third base batting sixth. Adam Frazier at second base batting seventh. Alexander Canario in left field batting eighth. And Jared Triolo, the shortstop, batting ninth. Right-hander Mitch Keller on the mound for the Pirates, and right-hander Dylan Cease on the mound for San Diego. Now let's take you around the horn.
Let's examine the most important news and the latest information you need to know in the world of Major League Baseball. Sam Levitt takes you around the horn. Presented by Valley View Casino and Hotel. Get ready for Major League winning when you join Valley View Casino and Hotel's Players Club and receive over $200 in free instant offers. Visit valleyviewcasino.com to learn more today.
Some headlines from around the major leagues. Angels, unfortunately, have put Mike Trout on the IL with a bone bruise in his left knee. Angels manager Ron Washington says the injury is not considered too serious. However, remember that Trout suffered multiple tears in his left meniscus last year that required 2 different surgeries. So you never like to hear about that left knee with Mike Trout, but Angels are hopeful that it's nothing too serious. 25-year-old Gunnar Hoagland makes his major league debut for the red-hot A's today. A's have all of a sudden won 11 of their last 15 games. Hoagland was a first-round pick by the Blue Jays in the 2021 draft. He was traded to the A's as part of the Matt Chapman deal back in early 2022. Yankees put second baseman Jazz Chisholm Jr. on the 10-day IL earlier today, 3 days after sustaining a right oblique strain. D-backs are activating infielder Ketel Marte before today's game. He suffered a left hamstring strain back on April 4th. And finally, Red Sox are putting right-hander Walker Buehler on the IL with right shoulder inflammation. They hope Buehler will only have to miss a couple of starts. And that's some headlines from around the major leagues. We'll have a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard coming up in just a little bit. When we return, we have our keys to the game, plus we hear from Brandon Lockridge, who is fresh off the IL today. Like I said, full look at the out-of-town scoreboard, what to watch for in today's game, and a full breakdown of today's starting pitching matchup between Dylan Cease and Mitch Keller. Again, Tarp on the field at PNC Park, but we will keep you company until today's game between the Padres and Pirates gets started. You're listening to the Padres Radio Network.
Hello, my friends.
Our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios as we get ready for today's game between the Padres and the Pittsburgh Pirates. Again, Tarp on the field at PNC Park. We will have a delay before first pitch that was originally scheduled for 3:40 local time here in San Diego. So that's the bad news. The good news is that, hey, you get more Sammy Lev in your life, I suppose. I'll be with you. until we get the first pitch coming up, whenever that is at PNC Park in Pittsburgh. I will tell you that we're going to go through our normal pregame coverage here. We're taking our time, a very leisurely stroll, if you will, through our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show. But when we wrap things up with our pitching preview, as we usually do, I will take your phone calls here on the pregame coverage today. So, phone number to call, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Phone number to call. You can wait in line for a little bit, wait on hold for a little bit. We won't get to the phone calls for a little while, but you are invited to call in this Friday here in San Diego. Hopefully we have baseball coming up soon from Pittsburgh, the Padres and Pirates in game one of this 3-game series. Padres, as we've said already, did make a roster move earlier today. Let's get to that with our injury report.
Who's in? Who's out? This is the Bada Fulkerson Injury Report, presented by San Diego's Bulldog Injury Attorneys, who hope you're never in an accident. But if you are, make Bada Fulkerson the first call you make. Hit them up 24/7 at badafulkerson.com.
Padres making a move earlier today. As we've told you, Brandon Lockridge is off the IL after dealing with a hamstring injury, and Tirso Ornelas went back down to AAA. He was optioned. That was the corresponding move earlier today. So Lockridge, obviously, who is very speedy, plays good defense, has shown an ability to hit a little bit. He is back in the major leagues. Tirso Ornelas goes back down to AAA after his initial cup of coffee in the major leagues. And that's a quick look at the injury report. Padres getting healthier and healthier. Luis Arraez and Jason Hayward coming back earlier this week on Tuesday to play the Giants. And it looks like, if you read reports, that Jackson Merrill is aiming a return on Monday in New York, and then maybe Jake Cronenworth shortly after that at some point. So the Padres are not yet at full strength, but it sounds like there's a good possibility that at some point during this road trip, they will be back at what you could say is full strength as far as their lineup, and that would certainly be a good thing. Getting Jackson back, getting Jake back, but Brandon Lockridge is available off the bench in today's game. Speaking of Brandon Lockridge, he spoke inside the Padres clubhouse earlier today in Pittsburgh. Here was Lockridge talking about his hamstring injury and the rehab from it.
Yeah, it was an unfortunate thing. I think it's been close to 3 weeks now, and just kind of tried to play it slow, be smart about it. Obviously, I'm not very beneficial without my legs. That's kind of my game. So we definitely played it safe and took all the necessary steps to get back to 100%, and so I can be healthy the rest of the season. So
good to have Brandon back at 100%. Certainly does bring a lot with his legs and the speed. Here was Lockridge on what he hopes to bring now that he's back with the Padres.
Yeah, I think it's just some aggression on the bases, good defense. I'm just going to try to put together good at-bats, and we just got to do whatever we can to score one more run than the other team, and whatever that is that day, I'll try to do my best to do it.
Brandon Lockridge, of course, traded from the Yankees organization to the Padres during last summer, and Yel De Los Santos going to New York. Lockridge then came up late in the season and was an asset for the Padres after that trade. Here was Brandon on transitioning to a new organization in the Padres after that trade last year.
Yeah, it was definitely a weird transition. I'd spent my whole career with a bunch of guys with the Yankees that I'd known, since 2018. So, getting over to a new club and settling in, it was, these guys were so welcoming to me, and it's like you said, it's like a family here, and I'm just super thankful to be a part of this team.
That was Brandon Lockridge earlier today in the Padres clubhouse. Lockridge, like we said, back in the major leagues, back on the 26-man roster after coming off the IL. Tirso Ornelas going down to AAA El Paso. Again, tarp on the field at PNC Park. Our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show continues here on 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network. Let's give you our keys to today's game.
How will the Padres unlock a win today? These are the keys to the game. Presented by El Centro Motors Ford. Meet your new Ford General Manager, Greg Ryan, now at El Centro Motors Ford, your new Ford truck, Bronco, and SUV HQ. Call Greg directly at 619-944-0774.
Key number one, deal with O'Neal Cruz. O'Neal Cruz has been great for the Pirates as of late. He's on pace. How about this? For a 40-homer, 60 stolen base season. And like we said earlier, Cruz at the very top of the lineup for the Pirates, playing center field tonight. Last 14 games for O'Neal Cruz, he's hitting .302 with a .698 slugging percentage, 8 home runs, 12 RBIs, and 11 runs scored in that span. Now, with that said, Cruz is not a good defensive outfielder. He's at minus 11 as far as defensive runs saved. And even if you don't know exactly what defensive runs saved DRS is, know this, that number at negative 11, that number is the worst among major league outfielders. So he is not very good defensively, but offensively has been very, very good for the Pirates so far this year. He is somebody to watch and be careful with in that leadoff spot. Key number two, keep the runs coming. The Padres scored 12 runs in their 2 wins against the Giants. For context, they scored only 23 runs combined in their prior 11 games before Tuesday. Now, a big reason why the Padres are scoring, well, they're getting it done with runners in scoring position. The Padres went 9 for 17 with runners in scoring position in the 2 wins against San Francisco. In the 9 games before Tuesday, the Padres hit just 143 with RISP. So it's no surprise they're doing much better in those situations with runners in scoring position, and the Padres are scoring way more runs. Those two things typically go hand in hand. That's key number 2. Keep the runs coming. Key number 3, keep penning a classic. The Padres bullpen has actually been a tad, and I mean just a tad shakier as of late. A total of 8 earned runs allowed in the past 6 games. Meanwhile, even with that, the Padres bullpen ERA is still just 1.77 on the season. That is by far and away the lowest in the major leagues. That is 0.64 points better than the second place Giants bullpen. Padres relievers also lead the majors with a 0.96 ERA. And look, when you look at the Padres record, 19-11, objectively, that's a very, very good start to a season through 30 games. The bullpen, a huge part of it. They have all, for the most part, been terrific. That's key number 3. Keep penning a classic, maybe a novel, maybe a mystery. Who knows? Key number 4. Dylan finding his rhythm. Dylan Cease told reporters after his start against the Rays on Saturday that he's not quite in that good rhythm right now. We'll get more into Dylan Cease a little bit later, but just some underlying metrics for Cease to consider. His whiff rate is down from last year by 3 percentage points. His ground ball rate is down by more than 6 points. The average opponent exit velo on his four-seam fastball is up by nearly 3 miles per hour. Look, I think the Padres are confident that Cease will find that groove, but him being the more dominant version of himself and making whatever are the necessary adjustments to get there, that would be nice to see today. See a really, really dominant, solid outing from Dylan Cease. And that's a look at our keys to today's game. Again, we'll have more on Dylan Cease coming up in our next segment. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios. We have the tarp on at PNC Park, so we will have at least somewhat of a delay before first pitch in Pittsburgh. How long of a delay? We don't know yet. We will pass along whatever information we have for you as the afternoon rolls along. But for now, you got me as we continue our pregame coverage here on the Padres Radio Network. And in a little while, we will take some of your phone calls at 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. We've got plenty of time, all the time in the world right now to take some of your phone calls. So whatever you want to talk about Padres related, we can do that coming up probably sometime after 3:30 or so. Let's take a full look at the Major League scoreboard as we take you through the bigs.
Let's take a trip around the bigs to highlight the scores that matter most with our out-of-town scoreboard. Presented by Jensen Premium Beef Patties. Always a hit for grilling.
We have just one game going on right now. In fact, I take that back. We have one other game also in a rain delay before first pitch, and that is in Cincinnati. Nationals and the Reds are delayed before first pitch in Cincinnati. So everything else coming up a little bit later. Diamondbacks and the Phillies in Philadelphia at 3:45. Good pitching matchup in that one. Merrill Kelly on the mound for Arizona. Jesus Luzardo on the mound for Philadelphia. Royals and the Orioles at 4:05 in Baltimore. Michael Wacha on the mound for Kansas City. Dean Kramer on the mound for the Orioles. Rays and the Yankees at 4:05 in the Bronx. Ryan Pepio on the mound for Tampa Bay. Max Fried is off to a great start with the Yankees, a 1.19 ERA in 6 starts so far. He's on the mound for New York. Guardians and the Blue Jays in Toronto at 4:07. Logan Allen on the mound for Cleveland. Chris Bassett on the mound for Toronto. Twins and the Red Sox at 4:10. In Boston at Fenway Park, Joe Ryan on the mound for Minnesota. Brian Bayo on the mound for the Red Sox. A's and the Marlins in Miami for 10 p.m. start time in that one. Right-hander Gunnar Hoagland, big-time prospect, making his Major League debut today for the A's. Dodgers and the Braves in Atlanta at 4:15. Braves sending right-hander Grant Holmes to the mound, and right-hander Yoshinobu Yamamoto on the mound for L.A. Astros and the White Sox in Chicago at 4:40. Framber Valdez on the mound for Houston. Jordan Cannon on the mound for the White Sox. Mariners and the Rangers in Arlington at 5:05. Jack Leiter on the mound for Texas. Brian Wu for Seattle. Cubs and the Brewers in Milwaukee at 5:10. Quinn Priester on the mound for Milwaukee. Ben Brown on the mound for the Cubs. Mets and the Cardinals at 5:15 in St. Louis. Clay Holmes for New York. Sonny Gray on the mound for St. Louis. Tigers and the Angels in Anaheim at 6:38. Tarek Skubal on the mound for Detroit, and Jose Soriano on the mound for the Angels. And finally, Rockies and the Giants in San Francisco at 7:15. Robbie Ray on the mound for San Francisco. Antonio Senzatella on the mound for Colorado. Rockies come in just 6-25. And Giants, of course, trying to bounce back after dropping 2 games to the Padres earlier this week. And that is a very full look at the out-of-town scoreboard. Everybody in action on this Friday. Well, fingers crossed, everybody in action. We already have 2 games with rain delays before first pitch. Come on, we're looking out the window here in beautiful San Diego. We were talking about it during the last commercial break. Our great studio coordinator, Jeff Hamby, and I were looking out the window. I mean, just a gorgeous Friday afternoon. And meanwhile, we got rain in Pittsburgh. If only today's game was in San Diego, a place where we don't get much weather like this or like that they have in Pittsburgh. Oh, well, it is what it is. You got to play on the road 81 times per year. So that's the way it is. When we come back, we'll tell you what to watch for in today's game. We'll also have a full breakdown of today's starting pitching matchup between Dylan Cease and Mitch Keller. Plus, we'll start taking your phone calls in a little bit as well as we keep you company. Again, we'll have a rain delay. We are having a rain delay before first pitch in Pittsburgh. As we get updates from PNC Park, we will be sure to pass them along. You're listening to the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show on the Padres Radio Network.
You're listening.
Welcome back to the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show. EcoWater SoCal, your water should be perfect. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios as we get ready for today's game between the Padres and the Pittsburgh Pirates. Right-hander Mitch Keller on the mound for the Pirates. Right-hander Dylan Cease on the mound for the Padres. Again, the tarp is on the field in Pittsburgh. We do have a rain delay before first pitch, and when we have an update as to when today's game will begin, we will be sure to pass it along. We're getting updates as we get them in Pittsburgh, and we will pass along any updates we have for you. But good news, we're going to keep you company here on 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network for the time being until first pitch for Game 1 of this 3-game series between the Padres and the Pirates. We'll talk more about our starting pitching matchup in just a moment. Like I said, we will take your phone calls coming up in just a little bit shortly after 3:30. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973 is always the phone number to dial if you want to get involved. Typically, that's on our post-game coverage, but during a rain delay, we have time to talk anything Padres related in a little bit on the phones. I did have some interesting stats passed along to me, and while we have time on our pregame coverage, I thought I would share them because I really don't know what to make of these. The team is 19-11, so I guess I'll just put them in the sort of weird category, but it is pretty interesting. It really is. So the stats that were passed along to me, and I think Chris has talked about it on his show, so I'll share it, that it was Chris Ello who handed me some notes before today's game, and they are pretty interesting. So how about this? There have been, to this point in the season, on May 2nd, entering today, May 2nd, 114 three-run home runs hit. The Red Sox lead the major leagues. They have 12 three-run home runs. The San Diego Padres, despite being 19-11, do not have a three-run home run this season, despite having 109 plate appearances this year with 2 runners on base. So again, the Padres, believe it or not, through 30 games, do not have a 3-run home run this season. Same thing with grand slams. There have been 24 grand slams already this season. The Diamondbacks already have 4 grand slams on the year. The Padres have had 28 plate appearances with the bases loaded. They do not have a grand slam this season. So I don't find the grand slam one as surprising, only 28 plate appearances, but think about no 3-run home runs so far this year. Kind of weird. It really is. In fact, and Chris has a whole sheet here of information. 3-run home runs. The Padres, in those 109 plate appearances with 2 runners on base, they only have 4 doubles. They have 1 double with the bases loaded in the 28 plate appearances. So again, it's a pretty small sample size. I don't know what to make of this, but it is interesting when you think about, 30 games in, Padres don't have a 3-run home run. Kind of weird. So now you know the first time, or I should say the next time the Padres hit a 3-run home run this season will be the first time they hit a 3-run home run this season. Speaking of home runs, let's tell you what to watch for in today's game.
What's the one thing Sam Levitt will be keeping his eye on in today's game? This is What to Watch For, presented by Genesis Home Improvements, San Diego's trusted painting, roofing, and window company. Save 15% today on a new beginning for your home. Visit GenesisHomeImprovementsSD.com.
What to watch for in today's game. Can Fernando Tatis Jr. find the power stroke again? And here's why I bring it up. Tatis has gone a season-long 8 consecutive games without a home run. That's after hitting 8 home runs in his first 21 games of the season. And as we know, as we talked about during Who's Hot, Who's Not, Fernando's still been productive at the plate. My goodness, he's still hitting .345 on the season, but hasn't hit a home run now all of a sudden in more than a week. So can Fernando find the power stroke again in Pittsburgh? That's what I'm watching for in today's game. Can we see a Fernando home run in this one? Good starting pitching matchup today between right-hander Dylan Cease and right-hander Mitch Keller. Let's dive in.
Let's take a look at who's on the bump today with our starting pitching preview on the Padres Radio Network.
Right-hander Dylan Cease on the mound for the Padres today, 29 years old in 2025, 6 starts, a 5.76 ERA, 29 and 2/3 innings, 36 hits allowed. He struck out 36 and walked 12. Those numbers all inflated by that one start in Sacramento where he gave up 9 runs on 9 hits in just 4 innings. However, we've certainly not seen the dominant version of Dylan Cease, at least yet. His last 3 starts since that one in Sacramento, he's been better, a combined 3.60 ERA, but he has given up 19 hits in just 15 innings. Last start against the Rays, he went 4 innings and a third, had to throw 95 pitches in those 4 innings and a third. 6 hits given up, 2 earned runs allowed. He struck out 6 and walked 4. Today will be his 4th career start against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Right-hander Mitch Keller on the mound for the Pirates. He's 29 years old, 6 starts so far in 2025, 3.97 ERA, 34 innings, 33 hits given up, 26 strikeouts, 11 walks. His last start against the Dodgers, 6 innings, 2 earned runs allowed. He had a really rough start against the Yankees on April 4th, allowed 7 earned runs on 8 hits in just 3 2/3 innings. But in 4 starts since then, Keller has been really good at 2.59 ERA in those 4 outings. This will be Keller's 6th career start against the Padres. He faced them in San Diego last August, did not go well, gave up 8 runs in 5 innings. And some guys in today's lineup that do have good numbers against Keller. Jason Hayward, 6 for 20 with a home run and 3 doubles against him. Jose Iglesias has a home run against him. Manny Machado has a home run against Keller as well. And that's a look at our starting pitching matchup today. Mitch Keller for Pittsburgh and Dylan Cease on the mound for San Diego. As always, we appreciate you listening to the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show. EcoWater SoCal, keeping it soft since 1925. Your water should be perfect. Well, right about now, we would typically get ready to send things out to Jesse and Tony, but again, tarp on the field at PNC Park. We do have a delay before first pitch, so what we're going to do for now is keep it right here in the studio and give you an opportunity to get involved on our pregame coverage. Phone lines are open. 833-288-0973. 833-288-0973. As always, the phone number to call. We can talk anything Padres related. You can chime in, tell me what the key to this series, this road trip is. We can talk about what happened this week. Whatever you want to discuss Padres-wise, feel free to call in. Again, 833-288-0973. If you would rather chime in on social media and be addressed that way, you can find me on X at Sammy Lev, SAMMYLEV. Instagram DM's open as well. Sammy Lev there too, SAMMYLEV. You can also comment on the 97.3 The Fan YouTube stream, and I may read your comment on the air that way as well. So let's step aside. When we return, we get some of your phone calls. Again, we are monitoring the weather in Pittsburgh, and when we have an update for you, we'll be sure to pass it along. You're listening to the Padres Radio Network.
Dixie Line Lumber and Home Centers, helping San Diegans fix it, build it, and enjoy it for over 100 years.
Every week, find dozens of bargains.
Welcome back into our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show here on the Padres Radio Network. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios as we get ready for today's game between the Padres and the Pittsburgh Pirates. Padres beginning a 9-game road trip to Pittsburgh, to New York to face the Yankees, and to Colorado with game 1 of a 3-game series today in Pittsburgh. Again, right-hander Dylan Cease on the mound for the Padres. Today it is right-hander Mitch Keller on the mound for the Pittsburgh Pirates. The tarp is on the field in Pittsburgh, so we have a delay before first pitch. Rain coming down. I think Jesse called it buckets of rain at one point when we checked it with Jesse at PNC Park in Pittsburgh, but I promise Jesse and Tony will come your way at some point on this beautiful Friday afternoon here in San Diego. Not nearly as beautiful in the Steel City in Pittsburgh right now, but when we have an update on a first pitch time, all that good stuff, we will be sure to pass it along. But for now, we'll get to your phone calls. Talk anything Padres related. Little rain delay programming for you, if you will. Rain delay programming as the rain comes down in Pittsburgh. Phone number to call, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973, the phone number to dial. Let's begin things on our rain delay programming here on the Padres Radio Network. We go to David calling in. David, welcome in. How are you?
Hey, buddy. Good afternoon. Thanks for taking my call. How are you, pal?
Doing well.
All right. I just wanted a couple of things here just to give a shout out to the pitching this year. When you look at runs allowed across Major League Baseball, the Padres pitching has just been amazing, man. They've given up the fewest runs in all of Major League Baseball.
Yeah,
they played a couple fewer games, but just knowing that is just it's just been phenomenal. And as far as runs scored, that's a whole different story, right? Mm-hmm. And I know there's a lot of injuries or whatnot, but it's one of those things that hopefully it's a long season. All teams go cold, go cold, but it would be nice to see.
David, appreciate phone call. Your phone is, I'm going to be honest with you, your phone, David, I'm sure you can hear me, is doing something weird where it's clicking, and I'm sure it's not enjoyable for for everybody listening. But I got the point about the runs scored versus runs against. So let's go. Let's look it up. I mean, look, we have time here, rain delay programming. So let's actually go look it up to see what exactly you're referring to as far as runs scored versus runs against. Padres entered today ranking. I can't imagine it's going to be all that high. I'm sure it was, but then they had that stretch where over 11 games they only scored 23 runs. So it's so there are some interesting little numbers and stats about the Padres so far. They're sitting at 19-11. They've scored 118 runs in 30 games. That would rank them, let me see, 30, 29, 28, 27, 26, 25, 24, 23. That would rank them 22nd in the major leagues. 22nd in the major leagues in runs scored. Now, runs against, and again, we're just doing some very basic stuff here, looking at runs scored versus runs against. As far as runs against, how about this? And this is where David was spot on. Good for David. Giving up 90 runs in 30 games. That is the least in the major leagues. So, if you want to zoom out, really big picture about why the Padres have played, why the Padres are 19-11 through 30 games, which objectively is a very, very good start, right? And could have been even better, you would think, without the injuries, and obviously had a stretch where they lost 8 of 11, but even with that, because they got out to a 15-4 start through 19 games, they're sitting at 19-11, which I think if you would have asked me, if you would have asked any Padres fan, you would have signed up for a 19-11 start through 30 games. But if you want to look at one number that just sort of tells the story, the 90 runs given up, to David's point, in 30 games. It's the lowest number in the major leagues by 8 runs. The Mets have given up 98. They have a slightly lower ERA than the Padres do. They've also played 2 more games, to be fair. But 90 runs given up, it's been terrific. And we went over the numbers with the bullpen a little bit earlier on the pregame coverage. This bullpen has been terrific. They've even been just a tad shakier as of late. Total of 8 earned runs given up in their past 6 games. But even with that, the Padres bullpen ERA is still just 1.77 and by far the lowest in the major leagues. I mean, that is, think about this, 1.77 ERA for a bullpen into May. That is 0.64 points better than the second place Giants bullpen. So the Giants bullpen has an ERA, somewhere a little bit over 2. It's about 2.25, and the Padres are at 1.77. I mean, this bullpen has been great, and if you want to zero in on one reason in particular why this team's 19-11, the pitching being so good and the bullpen being so good. In particular, it's been very impressive. It's been a big reason why they're sitting at 19-11, even with some of the injuries they've dealt with as of late. And I thought what was interesting too, if you look at that 11 game span where they lost 8 of 11 before the series against the Giants, these games were not blowouts. It's not like the Padres weren't in these games. In fact, that made it even more frustrating because they were in the games, and a lot of that had to do with how good the pitching continues to be. And hopefully they can keep it rolling. Let's go to Gonzo calling in from Ocean Beach. Gonzo, you're on the Padres Radio Network. Welcome in.
Sammy, my boy. Thank Peter. It's Friday.
Yes, thank goodness it's Friday. Yes.
So that stat you said about Shildt about having the best record of all time,
yes.
That was crazy. So I remember a few seasons back, you and I talked about how that was our Achilles heel, like losing multiple games to teams that were below 500, the teams that we should have been playing better against.
Yeah.
With your computer, do you know, since we've got Shildt, how have our numbers changed against the below 500 team?
Yeah, it's a good question, Gonzo. It would take me a minute to look it up. I think I can do it fairly quickly, so I'll work on it during our next little break. It's better for sure. I mean, look, you certainly felt last year without looking at the numbers, and I can probably figure it out fairly quickly on Baseball Reference, but I'm not going to do it right now while I'm talking. But just off the top of my head, it certainly was better. I mean, look, you'll remember in 2023, they had a major problem with teams that you felt they should have beat up and done work against, and it just didn't happen. I mean, you can go back and look at some of the records against sub 500 teams. It just was not good. It was a big reason why that team missed the playoffs. And last year they took care of business much better against teams you felt like they should take care of business against. Now, look, the interesting part, Gonzo, of this series against the Pirates is that this should be a team they can, and again, Padres aren't fully healthy. I get that. They are facing a good starting pitcher tonight in Mitch Keller, good starting pitcher in Andrew Heaney on Sunday. So it's not the easiest series, although they are going to miss Paul Skeens, who pitched yesterday against the Cubs, and Paul Skeens is still not faced the Padres. We'll see if he faces them at Petco Park when the Pirates come to town. But this should be a series where I think you'd be kind of disappointed if the Padres don't get out of Pittsburgh this weekend winning 2 out of 3. To be honest with you, Pirates are 12-20. And there's a lot of disappointment with what's going on with the Pirates right now, even though they have a great player in Skeens. They're not spending a ton of money. They haven't put a ton around their superstar and some of these young, promising pitchers like Keller, like Skeens, like Jared Jones, who's also really, really promising and off to a great start in his major league career. So this should be a series where they go in and they win it. Take 2 out of 3 and move on to New York. Let's go to Rod calling in. Rod, you're on the Padres Radio Network. How are you?
Hey, Sammy, real good. Thank you for letting me on, and thank you for joining me on the long drive to Long Beach.
Okay.
On my to the if you know what I mean. And shout out to the levitators out there on the YouTube chat. Sorry I can't be on there, but I am driving and listening, Sammy. So just want to give props to our bullpen and the overshadowed bullpen staff and Victor Rodriguez and the hitting.
Yeah.
And hitting coaches, man, just they deserve some shine, and I just want to take this opportunity and show them some love from the pitching whisperer Ruben Niebla to Gonzo, who just called, man. Let's go, let's ride, and let's go Padres. Let's get these 9 games, bring them home.
All right, thanks, Rod. Sam. Yeah, Rod, appreciate the phone call as always. Thank you as always for your support. Yeah, look, you touched on a number of different things there. The bullpen's been great. We went over the bullpen. Look, what I liked a lot about the 2 games against the Giants was this. And we talked about it earlier with Jesse. And by the way, you will hear from Jesse and Tony coming up at 4 p.m. So stay tuned for that. So we'll throw it out there for an update at 4 p.m. in Pittsburgh inside the radio booth with Jesse and Tony. Look, I really like these 2 games against the Giants for one primary reason, and that was that the offense looked like the offense you fell in love with the first 2-3 weeks of the season. I mean, it wasn't just the fact that they scored 12 runs total, that they were great with runners in scoring position. We said the number earlier. Let me pull it up here in my pregame notes. What was the number I had in keys to the game? 9 for 17 with runners in scoring position in those 2 wins against the Giants. And again, for context, the 9 games before Tuesday, they hit 143 with runners in scoring position, and they scored a grand total of 12 runs in the 2 wins against San Francisco. They scored just 23 runs combined in the prior 11 games. So they woke up in a big way. But even beyond just the numbers and the fact that they were scoring runs, I love that it looked like the team you saw in the first 2-3 weeks, and quite frankly, like the offense you saw last season, where they have the ability to put together rallies, to come out with 2-out hits, to move the line, string hits together, all the things that they were doing so well in the first 19-20 games of this season offensively, and then it went really quiet, and that coincided with the injuries. And those 2 things certainly have a relation to one another. But now, to me, it's about going on the road and continuing to do that. And hopefully you get a big piece back, hopefully on Monday in Jackson, Merrill, in New York. Hopefully Jake Cronenworth comes off the IL at some point in this road trip. It seems like both those things are trending that way. And you get this offense cooking again. And hey, if you pair this offense with what the starting pitching has been mostly and with what this bullpen has done, that is a really good recipe for winning a lot of games. And that was the recipe in the first 19-20 games. The injuries played a huge role in why they then lost 8 of 11 before the 2 games against the Giants. But I just loved against the Giants, beyond the number of runs scored and the numbers with runners in scoring position, I loved that it just looked like the team from the first 2-3 weeks offensively. It did. So, look, I think Luis Ariz, as we've talked about with both Tony and Jesse, has a lot to do with that, not just because of his production, but because it allows you to move some guys down the lineup. He is so good at seeing pitches. He is so good at setting a tone against the starting pitcher. It does make a big difference, and I don't think it's a coincidence that Luis came off the IL, showed up, and all of a sudden the Padres were looking like themselves again. Looking like the offense that we just didn't see in the first 2-3 weeks of the season, but the same offense that led the major leagues in batting average last year and struck out as few times as anybody in the major leagues last year. So good to see. And we know Victor Rodriguez has played a major role as hitting coach, and what this team's approach has been. They go up there looking to hit. They will take their walks, but they're not looking for them. And hopefully we continue to see what we saw the 2 games against the Giants. Phone number to call, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. We'll step aside. When we come back, we will get some more of your phone calls. So if you're on hold, wait on hold. You can also call in, and we will go out to Jesse and Tony for an update at 4 p.m. So that's coming up in the next 10-11 minutes. Again, we have a rain delay in Pittsburgh right now. We are awaiting to find out when first pitch will be for game 1 of this 3-game series between the Padres and Pirates. But until then, we are talking to you on the phones. You're listening to the Padres Radio Network. Back here on our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show here on the Padres Radio Network. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios as we get ready for today's game. Again, we have a rain delay before first pitch in Pittsburgh, but you will hear from Jesse Agler and Tony Gwynn Jr. at the top of the hour, so stay tuned for that. They'll have an update for you and tell you everything going on in Pittsburgh right now. We are taking your phone calls until then, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973, the phone number to call. Before we get back to the phones and talk Padres, I did want to just highlight, and if you've been on social media, I think you've seen this, but just highlight what Leo DeVries, the Padres' top prospect, is doing as an 18-year-old in the Midwest League right now, because it is remarkable. It really, really is. I'm going to go through the leaderboard of the Midwest League, and I think an important piece of context when we talk about Leo in the Midwest League at high A with the Fort Wayne Tin Caps is he is, for the most part, playing with guys that are 3, 4, 5 years older than him, 21, 22, 23, and he's 18 in his second pro season and his first full minor league season. He's hitting .311, which ranks 9th in the Midwest League. He's got 19 RBIs, which ranks 6th. He's leading the Midwest League in slugging at .622. He's leading the Midwest League in OPS at .1024. He leads the Midwest League in triples with 3. He ranks 4th in extra base hits with 12. I mean, it is just remarkable, and it does make you really excited for this kid to get to the major leagues. I know yesterday on the roundtable they were talking about, on the Padres roundtable presented by Roundtable Pizza, of course, they were talking about what the timeline might be for Leo DeVries. Now, in my opinion, there is a long way to go between doing what he's doing at high A and getting to the major leagues. But you look at it and, is it a crazy idea that he would be at Double A at some point this year? I don't think that's crazy at all, depending on the level of success he's having throughout the next couple of months at high A. And once you get to Double A, I mean, you're sort of on the clock as a prospect, right? I mean, Triple A is not the development level it once was. We saw Jackson Merrill, right, totally skip Triple A. He ended up just fine. We saw Jackson Merrill play very, very limited number of games at Double A. He ended up just fine. Now, he was also a bit older than Leo, but it's going to be interesting if he continues to perform the way he's performing in the minor leagues. It is going to be fascinating to see what the Padres do, an organization that does not shy away from putting prospects on the fast track, to see what they do with Leo DeVries. It's going to be fascinating because we know they don't wait. We saw what they did with Jackson Merrill. We saw what they did with C.J. Abrams a few years ago. They will push them if they believe in them and think they're ready. And it's, again, 18 years old to put up these kind of numbers early this season at high A. It's really impressive. And I'm not going to be surprised at all if you look at the prospect rankings come the end of this season and Leo DeVries is number 1 on that list in Major League Baseball, because he came in with the reputation being the number 1 overall international prospect, top signing, and he's living it up. He's living up to it. So he's got all the talent in the world, and he's 18. And I saw him a ton during spring training. He conducts himself, like an adult, and kind of like a major leaguer already. So he's somebody to be really, really, really excited about. All right, again, we'll go out to Jesse and Tony at the top of the hour. First, let's go back to the phones, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973, phone number to call. We go to Sarah calling in. Sarah, you're on the Padres Radio Network. Welcome in.
Hey, Sammy. I just want to let you know we appreciate all you guys do. But I have a question. You talked a little bit about Luis Arraez being back in the lineup and that Merrill might be coming back this weekend. But what are we looking like having these guys come back? Do you think they're going to make it through the rest of the season? I mean, we also got, not really much news at all about Darvish and, that kind of aspect. And then you've got some of these younger guys who are showing such a lot of prospect how are we looking at keeping this team healthy for the rest of the season?
Sarah, appreciate the phone call. It's really good questions. Look, I guess the silver lining, Sarah, of all the injuries the Padres dealt with, obviously Arise was a very freak injury with the collision. Jackson dealing with the hamstring. To be honest with you, Jake Cronenworth's injury also was freak. I mean, he got hit in the ribs. Nothing he could do. I mean, it wasn't a soft tissue injury. It wasn't pulling something like Lockridge, like Merrill. The one silver lining, and we've talked about it before, is that they happened early. And it will be very important for this team to stay relatively healthy. Now, Sarah, I'll be honest with you, there's a long way to go. And you don't wish it on anybody, but you can almost guarantee there are going to be other injuries at some point to starters, because that's typically what happens over the course of a long year, and it's only May 2nd, and we've got a really long way to go. You hope it doesn't happen, but typically guys do get hurt, okay? It's just kind of how it goes. The one silver lining is that they happened early, and hopefully guys like Jake, guys like Jackson, who are so important. I mean, my goodness, Jackson is so important to this team for so many reasons. Hopefully they stay healthy. How they do that, I'm not a medical expert. I'm not an athletic trainer. But, and everybody with the Padres does a great job in those departments. Injuries do happen, though, unfortunately. It's not anybody's fault. Hopefully they stay healthy throughout the rest of the season. Now, it will be interesting to see who goes down when Jackson comes back, when Jake comes back. And part of why that's interesting to me is because I just don't see Tyler Wade going down with the way he's playing, with what he means to that team. I think it would be extremely hard to send Tyler down with how he's contributing right now and who he is and what he means to that clubhouse. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, look, they're going to have some options on guys to send down, like an Oscar Gonzalez would seem to be a candidate. When Merrill comes back, we'll see with Connor Joe. I got to look a little bit deeper into what the option situations are for somebody like Connor Joe, but there are options of who to send down. So we'll see when those guys get back. And look, the other part of it, Sarah was talking about the prospects. It's not like anybody came up and tore the cover off the ball, which is something you would have loved, but it's not like anybody came up and tore the cover off the ball. Tirso didn't do that. Oscar Gonzalez didn't do that. Connor Joe didn't do that. Of all the guys who came up after the injuries, the guy who's played the best is Tyler Wade, which again is part of the reason I don't think you can send Tyler down, and you can't send him down. You'd have to DFA him again. So it's going to be interesting to see what the corresponding move will be for Jackson Merrill when he possibly comes back on Monday. But to Sarah's point, and then we'll go to break and we'll get to Jesse and Tony after the break. To Sarah's point, I think one thing we've seen and we've learned is when healthy, this team is really dynamic. This lineup is really, really, really good. When they're not healthy, that's when they're going to run into trouble. So to the caller Sarah's point, one way or another, staying healthy through the rest of the year, of all the things to consider with the Padres the rest of this season, that is like top of the list, because we've seen when injuries happen, that's when things can get a little bit shaky for this team. We'll step aside. When we come back, we'll check in with Jesse and Tony in Pittsburgh. You're listening to the Padres Radio Network.
Hi.
game of this 9-game road trip to Pittsburgh, New York, and Colorado. Let's go out to PNC Park in Pittsburgh and check in with Jesse Agler and Tony Gwynn Jr. Guys, what's going on in the Burgh?
All right, Sammy. Well, it is still raining, I think, but the second wave of weather is on its way through and out. And if I had to guess, we'd be playing baseball within an hour, within the hour. So by 5 o'clock San Diego time. And look, Tony, we kind of know what we're going to get this time of year, this part of the country. And none of this goes down as a surprise. And I'm sure down in the clubhouse, everybody just staying loose, ready to go. This is something pretty much everybody has been through by this point.
Yeah, when the schedule comes out the end of this year, first thing you do is you kind of look to see what the new places are. You're going to get a chance to see that maybe you didn't see the year before, but you're also checking to see when Pittsburgh's on the schedule. And you know that if it's in April or May, that this could be what you're looking at. And by this, I mean we're here for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There is rain in the forecast all 3 days, and it's kind of a dice roll on whether you get rained out, whether there's a doubleheader involved, or whether, you get any of these games in. And so right now it seems like there's going to be a window for them to get at least some of this game in before that next portion of the storm comes in.
Yeah, the craziest part about it is that, you check the forecast yesterday and then you check it this morning and they're a little bit different. And then you check this afternoon and it's different again. So it's really hard to stay, more than a few hours out in front of this stuff. But for tonight, it looks like we're going to be able to play baseball, I would say, again, within the next hour. As of now, the forecast for tomorrow is totally miserable.
Yeah.
And the game is supposed to be at 4 o'clock local time tomorrow, 1 o'clock back home in San Diego. And again, that could change. But as of right now, tonight actually looks a lot better than Saturday. So again, you take it as it comes. It kind of is what it is. The thing you always want to avoid is the thing that happened last August when we were here in the game that Dylan Cease started. He's, of course, going to be on the mound for the Padres here tonight, and that's that you start the game and you play one inning, and then you got to pause it. That was the case with Cease, and thanks in part to the field conditions and the rain, he was burned. Padres ended up winning that game, swept the season series from the Pirates last year, but that's, I think, from a baseball standpoint, the thing everybody's trying to avoid.
Now, mind you, that was in August, so there's still a lot of time for that kind of thing to happen. But yeah, that is the ultimate kind of downer, is that you're hoping that you don't burn a starter. And given that happened to the Padres last year, rest assured there was probably some conversations prior to this game getting here that so that wouldn't happen again. So Padres in good shape right now in terms of that. Nobody's started warming up or any of those type of deals. But nonetheless, it's still a difficult thing to kind of prepare for, because as you said, the forecast is consistently changing, and that makes it difficult for everybody to kind of stay sharp and get ready when they know the game's going to start.
The other good news, just kind of looking out of the field right now, is that there doesn't appear to be any significant flooding on the warning track. And of course, that game last year in which Cease pitched, that was actually as much of an issue as the rain itself. They had a clogged drainage pipe out in center field. You might remember it basically turned into a river out on the warning track. Jackson Merrill at one point went out there and he kind of pretended like he was going to dive into it to sort of communicate to the dugout just how deep it was. It got to the point that game last August where Cease actually came out after the rain delay on the mound, started warming up, and it looked like we were going to resume the game. And then when the umpires saw the amount of water that had kind of collected on the warning track in center field, they said, all right, that's no good. And then it was like another hour and a half or something like that while they got the water off the warning track. So again, that doesn't look like it's going to be an issue today. Grounds crew is already actually starting to work on the warning track in left center field right now, but no significant accumulation of water out there, which from a safety perspective is obviously one of the main things.
Yeah, last year it just seemed like everything that could go wrong went wrong. Not often do these big league stadiums get those type of situations where a drainage system is clogged, because they know how vital it is, especially in a place like Pittsburgh, to have those things up and running. So as you said, it doesn't look like any of that's taking place. For the most part, everything seems pretty dry on the warning track and in the outfield, which, as a former outfielder, I can tell you that they don't care about us outfielders. They roll the water right on out there, and that's where it's put out to drain. And so, like you said, should get some baseball in here tonight against the Pirates as the Padres look to continue their winning ways.
Yeah, it shouldn't be too long. It is still raining. I can see the raindrops coming down on the tarp. It's kind of a bright white tarp over the infield here. But the grounds crews come out at PNC. They're removing the stakes that are kind of holding the tarp down and the sandbags that are weighing it down. So obviously all of that would be a precursor to rolling this thing off the field and getting ready for baseball. So I will go out on a limb, Sammy, and say, I'd expect first pitch sometime this hour, maybe, a little bit after if it takes a little bit longer for this rain to pass through. But it is lightened up in a big way. There is a window, it looks like, of a couple of hours before any more potential rain could end up here. So hopefully get this thing started soon. Hopefully play it in full here tonight. And then, we'll just do it all over again tomorrow afternoon.
All right, guys. Thank you. I appreciate the update. I love hearing the stakes coming out of the tarp. That is music to my ears right now. That's Jesse Agler, Tony Gwynn Jr. We'll hear more from them coming up a little bit later on. Hopefully we have first pitch sooner rather than later here at PNC Park in Pittsburgh. Again, Sam Levitt with you back inside our San Diego studios as we continue our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show, an extended edition, if you will, of our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show. So the good news, it sounds like the tarp is being prepared to be rolled off the field. I will tell you, though, if they haven't even taken the tarp off the field, it's still going to be a while. So when we have a first pitch time, we will pass it along. Again, a good starting pitching matchup between Dylan Cease and Mitch Keller tonight for game one of this 3-game series in Pittsburgh. But we will keep you company until today's game begins. If you want to get a phone call in, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. As always, the phone number to call. We are taking your calls during this rain delay programming and can talk anything and everything Padres related on this Friday here in San Diego. We'll step aside, come back with more during this rain delay programming right here on the Padres Radio Network. Our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios. Again, we'll have updates for you as far as when today's game will begin in Pittsburgh, a rain delay before first pitch. Oh, I have an update for you right here, right now. Just got some information on the wire. Of course, there's no more wire. I don't even know what a wire is. Well before my time, but got some information on the text message here. Today's game is expected to start at approximately 4:50 p.m. local time here in San Diego. So, first pitch coming your way at approximately 4:50 p.m. in Pittsburgh. Dylan Cease on the mound for the Padres. So, we do officially have a first pitch time, 4:50 p.m. here in San Diego, and you'll hear from Jesse and Tony before that with the starting lineups, all that good stuff beginning at 4:40. So we'll cover about 28, 29 more minutes. And how do we do that? Well, part of what we do is we take your phone calls at 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. We'll also circle back to some of our pregame elements for those of you who missed it a little bit earlier. It was about an hour ago at this point. We'll hear from Mike Shildt one more time. So we'll kind of revisit some things that we had earlier in our pregame coverage as we keep you company during our rain delay programming. But again, good news, first pitch at 4:50 in Pittsburgh, and so we'll go out to Jesse and Tony at 4:40. They'll have the starting lineups and everything coming up for you. Let's go back to the phones, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973, the phone number to call. We go to Pamela calling in. Pamela, you're on the Padres Radio Network. Welcome in.
Hi, thank you for taking my call.
You got it.
I'm curious about when players are on the IL. Sometimes I see them in the dugout, and I just have been looking for Jackson Merrill. I haven't seen him, but I've seen Cronenworth, I see Darvish, I see Musgrove, and I'm just wondering, like, I can't imagine that Jackson Merrill doesn't want to be in the dugout. So I was just curious as why I haven't seen him.
Well, Pamela, he has been for the most part. Now, Jackson was in Arizona the last handful of days, and appreciate the call, Pamela. And hopefully this answers the question. Jackson, the last few days, was in Arizona rehabbing and playing games, getting at bats in Arizona. So that's why at least the last couple of days, I don't think he was there for either game against the Giants. I'm not sure about that 100% because I didn't keep a totally close eye on it, but I definitely didn't see Jackson inside the clubhouse. But the reason that Jackson wasn't there and the reason Brandon Lockridge wasn't there was because they were in Arizona. And look, guys that are on the IL for lengthier periods of time, Joe Musgrove being an example. I mean, Yu Darvish is an example right now, has been on the IL for a while. You'll see them, sometimes there, maybe sometimes not. Depends on their, treatment schedule, depends on their throwing schedule, depends on a number of different things, guys in Arizona rehabbing, whatever it might be, out for rehab assignments. It really depends. But with Jackson in particular, he'd been there pretty much every day. He didn't go on that last road trip. So that was one thing. He didn't go on the last road trip. He stayed behind. I believe he was in San Diego to just keep, rehabbing here, but he's been in Arizona. So hopefully that answers the question. But I think most guys, if they can be there, they're going to be there. It just depends on what the schedule is and where they are in their rehab process. All right, let's stay on the phones here. Let's go to Anthony calling in. Anthony, you're on the Padres Radio Network. Welcome in.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing well.
My question is when the players are seemingly going all around the country, how do you manage making adjustments to the batting in terms of the new guys and veterans like Machado? What is the approach to making adjustments, staying the course, and just being consistent?
Anthony, good question, and appreciate the phone call. It's an interesting question. Look, I think with the Padres in particular right now, and I think this is something that they focused on organizationally the last couple of years. I think with the Padres in particular, I think they feel like they have an offensive identity. I mean, we saw it last year, certainly first year under Mike Shildt, first year under hitting coach Victor Rodriguez. An offensive identity of putting the ball in play. They're not the most patient team in the world. I mean, they will attack. They're ready to hit. They're up there ready to hit. And that's something that has been a pretty consistent approach for them from last year. And the first 2-3 weeks of this season, they looked like the offense of last year. So when you work new guys in, I would like to think that that approach is probably what's being preached in the minor leagues, and definitely at AAA, where those guys are, could come up at any moment. Specifically with guys in the 40-man, and obviously those guys are around a lot during spring training. So, to me, your offensive approach as a team, it really shouldn't change no matter who's here and who's injured. I would like to think that that approach stays the same. And, you integrate guys in when they come up from AAA and they kind of take on the personality of what the team's doing offensively. I hope that answers the question. It's a better question for Victor Rodriguez, and maybe I'll ask Victor at some point when we have him on the pregame show. I'm sure at some point this season, how they deal with that, guys coming up and new faces in the lineup and making sure they're going about things approach-wise the way that the Padres do. It's a good question, especially with the injuries the Padres had, and making sure guys are doing or at least approaching at bats the way the Padres want them to. Let's go to John calling in from Carlsbad. John, you're on the Padres Radio Network. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Doing well.
So I was fairly optimistic going into this season, just simply because we had way fewer question marks. If you remember last year, in spring training, I mean, we didn't know that Jackson Merrill was going to be a super stud. We didn't know, Jerickson Profar was going to have a career year. We had so many question marks going into last year, and we still won, 94 games. And, I was thinking they were going to at least do that, maybe 95, 96 wins this year. But in order to do that, what do you think we need right now? AJ's always been known to kind of make a splash move when we, and the right move when we've needed it. Where do you think, is it starting pitching? Do you think he'll add another utility player, maybe a big bat? And what's out there, what's available?
Yeah, that's a great question, John. And we're probably a little bit early for it here on May 2nd. But to your point, AJ typically is not somebody who necessarily is going to wait till the trade deadline to get moving on these things. My goodness, we saw him make the trade for a rise, around this time last year. So, John, it's a good question. I would put the two needs right now, and I'm not sure in what order I'd put them right now. Maybe I would put I would say, to me, I think a bat would be nice. I really do. I think another bat would be nice. Not only does it lengthen your lineup, but it does give you some injury insurance. I mean, we saw when this team starts getting banged up, it gets thin pretty quick right now. So I think a bat would be nice. I do. A DH type. A left fielder. Hayward's done a pretty good job so far, but that's a spot where you could trade for somebody and get a bigger bat in here. I think a bat would be nice, but a starting pitcher would also be great too. I think it would round out this rotation really, really well. You get Darvish back. Again, it gives you a little injury insurance. Like we said earlier, you never wish injury on anybody. You hope you have no more injuries the rest of the year. Is that realistic? Probably not. So I'd probably say a bat first and a starting pitcher second, but either one would, I think, be a nice move. The bullpen, I don't think you got to touch it right now. I don't. I mean, to be honest with you, if anything with the bullpen, you could convince me that, whether it is somebody in the major leagues or one of your more highly touted relievers, like Francis Pena, like a Bradley Rodriguez, just a couple of names to throw out there, you could convince me that those guys got to be trade pieces going somewhere else for stuff you need at some point this season. Because, and I bring that up to say your bullpen is so good right now. I don't think you got to add to this bullpen. I think that's, again, injuries happen. Hopefully they don't. The bullpen, to me, that's A+ right now. But could there be a piece in that bullpen right now that you could move to get something back in an area of need? Maybe you don't want to disrupt that bullpen, but it's going to be interesting to see if they do make deals, who goes, because to me, DeVries is untouchable. I would think Salas is not getting traded. So it does beg the question of who would go in a trade if you got to trade prospects away. Padres do have some, hard throwing relievers that are pretty close to the major league. So those would be attractive to teams, but I would put it, to me, as bat first, starting pitcher second right now. That's my opinion. And again, we're a while away from that. And a lot of things can happen between now and the summertime when we really get into the trade deadline kind of stuff. But bat first, starting pitcher second would be my answer right now. All right, let's step aside. When we come back, we'll get some more of your phone calls. If you're waiting on hold, stay on hold. We're going to get to you in a second. We'll also start to revisit some of the stuff that we played a little bit earlier on the pregame coverage. We'll have Mike Shilt's pregame press conference for you again. We'll kind of reset things and do a mini pregame show again as we lead you up towards first pitch. Again, first pitch coming up at 4:50 in Pittsburgh. You'll hear from Jesse and Tony at 4:40 from the radio booth at PNC Park. But until then, we keep you company right here on 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network. Our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios. Again, first pitch coming up at 4:50 at PNC Park in Pittsburgh. We are currently still in a rain delay before first pitch, but again, Tarp is off the field. They're getting the field ready. Dylan Cease getting ready. Mitch Keller getting ready. We'll revisit our starting pitching matchup in just a little bit. We'll also revisit what Mike Shildt had to say earlier today in a moment as well. But let's squeeze in one more phone call here in our extended EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show. We go to Rodney calling in. Rodney, you're on the Padres Radio Network. Welcome in.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, doing well.
Good. My question real quick, when you have a rain delay like this,
yes.
I mean, if it's not a thunderstorm or a tornado, then it's probably obvious, but when you have a rain delay like this, just a minimal rain delay, who has the final say? Is it the two skippers and the head umpire at the field, or do they got to make a call?
Rodney, way I understand it, and I don't know, New York might get involved sometimes, Rodney, and appreciate the phone call. It's a good question. The way I understand it is now. I'm not saying now. Somebody might correct me on this, but I'm not saying it is. It's solely these people. Like, there are probably a lot of different people that get involved on this. From what I always have understood, before the game starts, it is up to the teams, right? So it's up to the organizations, the teams, the managers. I mean, obviously, this is a collaborative effort, the local grounds crew at the stadium. It is up to the teams, right? As to what they're going to do as far as a delay. When the game starts, as you probably know, umpires got to make that call as to whether to put it in a rain delay. Now, when it comes to the game resuming, to my knowledge, I think, and from what I think you can see for the most part, that's more of a collaborative effort. But the important detail to note, I think, and I've always thought this, is that when the game starts, as far as going into a rain delay, it becomes up to the umpire.